Comic book relaunches are often used as selling points to new readers. And many times these relaunches feature new writers and new artists, sometimes both. And since this week Marvel is releasing a new Spider-Man relaunch by Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley, I decided to take a look back at one of the most controversial and one of the most hated Spider-Man crossover events that led to a relaunch. Today I'm going to take a look back at The Amazing Spider-Man One More Day. It's the comic book blurred. Who? Let me preface this by saying that I didn't hate One More Day. I actually thought it was a good story. And also let me say that I know Brand New Day, the storyline that followed, was not technically a relaunch. It did, however, serve its purpose as it brought in new readers like myself at the time, as well as bring in new artists and new writers. Hashtag One More Day was good. Alright, so let's begin. One More Day was a truly demoralizing and even anger-inducing story arc by Marvel. But in my opinion, if you look at it on its own merits, then you'll see it as one of Peter Parker's most heroic tales. In this story, there is a person that needs to be saved, just like most comic books, but Peter won't be able to save them with his conventional web-slinging, wall-crawling, or crime-fighting. In this story, he figures out the only way to save Aunt May is to sacrifice his own happiness. One More Day was written by J. Michael Straczynski and Joe Quesada, with Joe Quesada on the art. It dealt with the aftermath of Civil War, where Spider-Man revealed his identity to the world, as well as the Back in Black storyline, where Peter dons his black costume and vows revenge on the people who are responsible for shooting Aunt May. It's also the story that pissed a whole bunch of people off by retconning Mary Jane and Peter's marriage, just deleting about 20 years of continuity. Maybe even more than that. The story begins with Peter and Mary Jane looking over Aunt May in the hospital. He knows that he was the intended target of the sniper, not her. And it's because of this that he blames himself for what has happened to Aunt May. But he also doesn't blame just himself. He also believes that much of the fault falls on Tony Stark's shoulders. And maybe it was just his desperation, and maybe it was his fear of losing Aunt May, but he feels that if Tony Stark didn't push him to reveal his identity to the world, then him and Aunt May and Mary Jane wouldn't be in this position today. And it's because of this blame that he decides to pay Tony Stark a visit, even though he's still on the run from the government. He does this to not exact revenge on Tony Stark, not to try to beat him up, but to ask him to help. And after a short fight between the two, he does exactly that. Iron Man explains to Peter that if he does help him financially, then his position with this whole Civil War thing would be compromised. He tells him that he can't help, but he will let him go in respect for Aunt May. However, it's revealed later in the issue that Tony Stark sends Jarvis to cover Aunt May and Peter's finances. But this short interaction with Tony Stark helped me appreciate and truly love this storyline. By going directly to the man who's hunting him down, establishes how desperate this man is, how desperate he is to save Aunt May's life, and how desperate he will be getting. Now, with his finances covered, Peter learns from the doctor that there's nothing medically possible that they can do to help save her. And because of this, he determines that if there's nothing science can do, then he would have to rely on magic and miracles. Now, with the growing sense of desperation, he decides to pay Doctor Strange a visit. Upon arrival, Doctor Strange tries to reason with Peter, telling him that when it's a person's time to go, then it's their time to go. But Peter refuses to accept it. He tells him that it's his fault, that he can't accept Aunt May taking a bullet that was intended for him. So Doctor Strange grants him the use of a relic, the Hands of the Dead. With time running out on Aunt May's life, this tool allowed Peter to travel across different parts of the world at the same time. And this moment in particular, again, showed how desperate Peter was getting to save his aunt's life. In this act of desperation, he not only contacts the heroes you'd expect, Mr. Fantastic, Hank Pym, and Beast, but he also contacts known villains at the time, Dr. Doom, Morbius, and Doc Ock. But they all tell him what he's already been told, that there's nothing that they can do, and when it's a person's time to go, it's their time to go. Next, Peter uses the hands of the dead to try to go back in time, to prevent Aunt May from being shot altogether. Things go as you'd expect, as Spider-Man ends up unsuccessful and has to be rescued by Doctor Strange himself. But as Peter leaves the Sanctum Sanctorum, he's greeted by 4 mysterious people. The first of the 4 is a little girl with red hair who keeps telling Peter he's selfish. The second is a software designer. He tells Peter that he'd wish he'd done more with his life. The third is a self-made billionaire and inventor. He tells Peter that even though he's super successful, he traded all for the girl that got away. The last is a woman who tells Spidey that the men that he just met were alternate versions of himself, versions that never became Spider-Man. And after a short conversation with her, the woman reveals herself as Mephisto, the closest thing that you'll get to the devil in a Marvel comic. And it's here where the villain offers Mary Jane and Peter the deal that will save Aunt May's life. He doesn't want Peter's soul, he doesn't want Mary Jane's soul, he doesn't want to take over the world. He wants something more pure than that. He wants their happiness. He wants their marriage. Mephisto explains to them that if they agree, Aunt May's life will be saved, but their marriage will simply have never happened. But even though it has never happened, there will be something creeping in the back of their heads, a voice in their ear, telling them and reminding them of what they've lost. This constant pain and suffering of their lost marriage will be enough to satisfy Mephisto. He gives the two one more day to make up their minds. Either they lose their marriage, or they lose Aunt May. And in my opinion, in one of Peter's most heroic moments of all time, he makes up his mind. He chooses to sacrifice his happiness and his marriage to save Aunt May's life, effectively erasing much of the continuity that have been built the past 20 or so years. But like I said earlier, this isn't your conventional superheroics. He didn't save someone from a burning building. He wasn't able to punch his way out of this predicament. He gave up part of his life to save another. And regardless of how you may feel, I think we all can agree that this is one of the most heroic things that any superhero has ever done. And this is why I think so highly of this story, and one of the reasons why I came to love Peter Parker the character even more. One More Day ends with Aunt May alive and well, the world having forgotten Peter Parker's identity, Harry Osborn back from the dead, and Mary Jane and Peter's marriage deleted from history. It set the stage for Brand New Day, the pseudo-relaunch of the classic title. It brought in new writers and artists, and allowed them to introduce new characters and storylines. And even though the story may have isolated some regular readers and fans, I think the story itself is executed well and tells the tale of one of the most heroic comics ever. But yeah, my verdict is out. Give it a shot if you can. But what did you think about One More Day? Did you hate it? Like it? Nothing it? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, consider leaving a comment or hitting the like button, or maybe hitting the subscribe button. If not, that's cool too. I appreciate your help regardless. Peace and much love to you.